Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Women Mastering Midlife. We explore what it means to thrive in midlife transition. And this month, I really wanted to touch on topics of the heart. So, we heard from Dr. Jane Morgan about our physical heart. I did an episode about loving yourself. There's going to be an episode coming up about sexual health and wellness in midlife. But this episode is going to be a solo one. You just get me. And we are going to talk about relationships in this midlife transition. We're going to talk about how they shift, how we nurture them, and how we honor ourselves in the process. So let's get into it. Because midlife is a time of evolution, not just for us as individuals, but for the relationships we hold with our parents, our partners, our children, and our friends. So let's talk about how to navigate these changes with grace, empathy, but also empowerment, because we've lived a long time serving all those around us, and we need to make sure we stay true to ourselves. Let's talk about the parental relationship and how we're navigating the role reversal. Our whole lives, our parents took care of us, and then we grew up and we had families of our own, and now our parents are aging and the dynamic is shifting. Those caregivers for us are becoming the ones that we are giving care to. And we need to make sure that we talk about healthy boundaries. We talk about setting some very healthy boundaries by balancing the caregiving with our own needs to prevent burnout. We're in the middle of a hormone roller coaster. We have work obligations, we have other relationships with friends, our children, our spouses, and caregiving can feel like the boulder on your back. And so I think discussing the emotional challenges of stepping into this role is very valid. And there will be guilt and there will be grief as parents age. There will be guilt that we aren't doing enough or we can't provide them enough of our time. And even while they are still present in our lives, there will be grief around the loss of the parents that we had, right? So we might still see our parents regularly, but because we see them as these superheroes as we were younger, that illusion changes as they need us more. And so I think there's an importance in asking for help, sharing the responsibilities with siblings and other family members, and also seeking professional resources when needed. So, for me, I have two younger brothers. I'm the oldest, and I am the only girl. So, I always felt like when my parents get to the age that they will need help, I will be the one that steps in. But now my parents are retired in Colorado near my brother. So, does that shift the need for care? Probably not. But at least I have two siblings to manage everything with. My other brother lives on the East Coast, so he's not nearby, and I would take a plane ride. But my children are getting older. I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. He has a 2-year-old. His demands from his family will be greater than mine. And my parents are on the younger side. My mom is, she might kill me for saying this out loud, but my mom is 65. She was 50 when my daughter was born. My dad is a couple years older. And so they're still relatively young and they're very active. They help take care of my 2-year-old nephew. So they're busy and they're healthy-ish. They're healthy for their age, I guess. I mean, as we get older, the things creep on, the medicines start getting added, or the creaks in the bones start coming a little bit more frequently. But for my husband, his parents are older. He's a couple years older than me, but his parents were older when they had him. So his dad is in his 80s and his mom is creeping up there. And so for him, he's an only child. There's no one. I always say, because I have siblings, I have people to share the crazy of caring for parents, or my parents' attention is never solely focused on me. I have two other siblings for them to worry about. But for my husband, doesn't have anyone. So for my husband, it's all falling on him. And his dad is having surgeries and requiring medical assistance. And my husband's in the medical field, so they are asking him a lot of questions about procedures that are coming up and all the things. I mean, he's the only one for them to talk with. I I feel that when there isn't other siblings who shared your life experience with you with your parents, there's also this burden, not only of taking care of them physically and about, as they age or need health assistance, but also the burden of carrying your childhood with you. My brothers and I, we can all sit around and talk with our parents about vacations we took or Christmas traditions or stories from crazy things that happened in our life. But for Greg, it's just the three of them. And so I feel, we haven't really talked about this, but I can feel him carrying this load that's a little heavier of just that whole family story goes with him. And so there's some of that too. There's a lot more emotion around your parents aging than I think we really think of. And I think there's some self preservation in it that you don't really think about your relationship with your parents and them aging. And, the general progression of things. If things go according to aging's plan, they will no longer be here before me. And I can't imagine a world without my parents. And so I don't want to think about the emotional ramifications of watching them age and the toll that's going to take. And so in order to self-preserve, I don't think about that. And I haven't really thought of a plan of caring for them as they age. And I think that we like to talk about boundaries and avoiding burnout and self-care. But the reality is we're going to do everything we possibly can to care for our parents in the best way we possibly can do that. So while I can sit here and say maintain healthy boundaries around your time and your energy with your parents, it's going to be an individual experience. And I don't even know. Ugh. I don't even want to think about it. So I am going to become an avoidant, you know, stick my head in the sand kind of person about that one. And we'll talk about your significant others. Let's talk about rediscovering your partnership. With kids leaving the nest and co parenting winding down, couples are left to face each other in a new way, right? We have empty nest syndrome. How do we reconnect and redefine your partnership when the shared purpose of raising kids changes? It's hard enough to live through having your kids at home, recognizing that you probably parent differently. You probably have different goals for them. I've noticed as our kids are getting older as teenagers, we are worrying about them differently. Greg is worried about them becoming, you know, functioning members of society with careers that can sustain them and the ability to provide for themselves because we're not going to be here forever and we can't care for them forever. So helping them to create a life that will serve them is of interest to him. I'm worried about them developing good relationships with people, whether it be romantic or friendships or work relationships, telling them how to be safe on a college campus, worrying about their ability to advocate for themselves and the kind of people they're going to become. That's what I'm worried about. We already see this challenge of our purpose in parenting children, but then as they leave, we don't even have that anymore. So if we have dug into raising our kids and not really focused on our relationship, some people I've talked to say, okay, my kids are gone and now my husband and I are strangers. So if you haven't quite yet hit the empty nest portion of life, now is the time to evaluate your relationship. What is it about your marriage that makes it work? What about your marriage are parts that could use some tweaking? And we're not the same people. I married my husband when we were 20, I was 27. I'm not the same person I was at 27. Thank goodness. But, do your values align? Do your goals align? Can you communicate with each other? These are all things in your relationship that come into question when the busyness of parenting is gone. So, having open communication and revisiting what goals and dreams and shared interests we have is really important. And so, if you're not quite yet to that empty nest portion of life, I suggest, sitting with your partner and talking about like, what are we going to do in a couple years? Or what is a hobby we can do together now? Or when the kids are gone, what's something you really want to do with your time? Is it something that you do together or is it something that you do separately? Those are really important things to be thinking about. Again, it could be a head in the sand, I'll worry about it when it comes kind of thing. But then, if that's the case, are you left blindsided when it's just you and your spouse and alone in a house with empty bedrooms from kids that have moved out? This is what I thought would be a lovely topic. It's like tough stuff. So, if you've if you're at empty nest stage of life and you're looking at your partner and you're like, I don't recognize you anymore, and this relationship, our partnership isn't serving either of us, how do we approach the idea of separation or divorce with compassion? Like discuss the importance of emotional clarity and practical steps for managing the transition, and then are you going to date again? How do you embrace dating in midlife? Right? I would say to remember that one of the sexiest things is confidence. So we need to work on being confident, strong women in midlife, married or single, getting out there or not, stepping into our own. But that's more on the relationship with ourselves, right? We talked about that, giving yourself grace and knowing that you're a remarkable person. So, if we've gotten to the point where our teenagers have become adults and we're launching children, our role as parents shift. But even before then, we have teenagers, and it's a delicate balance of offering guidance and respecting independence, right? I mean, we want to bestow upon them the knowledge of our experience, but they don't care half the time. They think we're weird or we're a nerd or we're uncool and we don't know what we're talking about because we didn't live in this day and time. I'm sure I felt that way about my parents. But there's this balance, right? So because teenagers are starting to separate themselves from their parents, it's a natural progression. We want them to be independent, functioning adults. And in order to do that, we kind of need to soft launch them as teenagers. So giving them the guidance, but also giving them the opportunity to fail. And I've told my oldest that I want her to take big risks. I want her to put herself out there and know that she will always have a soft place to land. And I feel like that continues when we're talking of launching adults. I did an episode, one of my very first podcast episodes is with Emily McMason, and we talked about launching children and rediscovering ourselves. And if you haven't listened to it yet, it's one of my most popular episodes. People still talk about it. Every time kids are getting ready to go off to college in the fall, people will listen to it again. But when kids leave the nest and our role shifts, we need to let go of them and still stay connected. So we need to talk about respecting their autonomy, but keeping the relationship strong. And I think one of the things that Emily and I talked about was, is this something that's going to be uncomfortable for them, or is this something that could cause them harm? And if it's something that's going to cause them harm, step in. But if it's something that could make them uncomfortable, they need to learn how to sit in that discomfort. And so that's one of the things that I am trying to remember as my oldest is beginning to get ready to drive. She'll be spending more time unaccompanied by an adult. And so giving her that opportunity to sit in discomfort. I also feel like the resilience of the generations coming up isn't quite what it used to be. I mean, I was born in 1980, so I'm like on the cusp of Gen X and millennial. They say Xennial, which I think is crazy, but um, the latchkey kids, the independent kids, life before cell phones and social media, and get on your bike and ride around until it's dinner time. Those were all things that helped us build resilience and helped us grow a thicker skin. And I feel like we've protected, and that the times are different. We have to protect our children differently. But I feel like there is a little bit less resilience in this generation that's coming up. Um, and so providing those opportunities for them to be safe but uncomfortable is important. And remembering that we're an anchor for adult children, but we're not a tether. I don't want my children to feel leashed to me, but I want them to know that their family history is anchored in their mom and dad, and they can always come home for Christmas. Or if they're at college, they could always come home for spring break. They don't have to, but we will always be their soft place to land. So I don't want to spend forever talking about children because if you want to listen to the episode with Emily, again, I highly suggest it. But one of the things that I have noticed as I hit 45 is that my friendships with women have become more and more essential. And I've also recognized that not all friendships are meant to last forever. So leaning into the friendships that still are reciprocal, that help me grow, relationships that are built on trust, those are the friendships that still serve me. When crap hits the fan and I don't want to talk to my spouse or my mom about it, who's on my speed dial? Those are the relationships that, given the bandwidth that we have and how much free time we have, those are the ones that I will invest more time in. And having layers of friends. I think that, there's talk of friends, or there's talks of people that have 100 friends, but no true ride or dies, or they have 5 solid friends and no one else. And I think there's kind of a happy medium. You can have your ride or dies, bury the body friends. I think Brené Brown talked about, like, those are the friends that, who would help you bury a body. Those are your ride or die, your thick or thin kind of friends. And then I think there's the fringe friends. There's the friends that you know through school or your kids or your pickleball league or your golf league, and you get together and you go out and have dinner every once in a while, and they provide a perspective of life. They give you different experiences, someone to laugh with, keep it light so it's not always so serious. So I find that there's different kinds of friends that we need in midlife. I mean, I need a girlfriend that I can say absolutely everything to and no judgment. She will listen. And at the end of it, she might even throw well, heck with them. And that's exactly what I need, right? I also need the friends that some days I don't have the bandwidth for long, hard conversation or intense relationship stuff. And I just want to go and have a margarita and some chips and laugh about our kids. Or there's the mom that I can commiserate with over the long hours of being a dance mom. So just recognizing the supportive, uplifting women. So there are people out there that when you are encountering them, it is like a negative vortex that you leave exhausted. And I find that the older I get, the less of that I want in my life. So what can we do to nourish the relationships that leave you feeling lighter or more energized and be able to step back from the relationships that are just complete energy suckers? And then maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have 5 friends and I don't have a group. Maybe you moved. And I know that people that move as your kids get older, it's harder to make friends. It seems like it's so easy when your kids are in elementary school to make friends with the mom in the same grade or in the carpool line or on the field trips or at the sporting events. But as your kids get older, if you're in a new place, it's even harder. Or what if you never really clicked with people? I mean, join a community, right? If you're looking for new friendships, you're gonna have to be uncomfortable and put yourself out there. So think about communities and hobbies that mean a lot to you. Are you a member of a church that has a small group that you could join? Do you like pickleball? Do you like walking? Like, there's a walk around the lake group. Do you like yoga? Go to yoga. Join the Women Mastering Midlife community. But putting yourself out there and making new friendships, staying open to connection, it might feel hard. You might feel like, gosh, I feel like I'm in high school again trying to make friends. But the studies have shown that women who have friendships and relationships with other women or relationships outside of their romantic relationships, their health is better, their stress is lower, their sleep is better. So be open to meeting new people. Get yourself out there. And the last thing I want to say about relationships is that through it all, whether we are able to pull back on our children and allow them to launch more independently or not, whether we become caregivers for our parents or not, whether we stay with our spouse or not, whether we redesign our relationship after becoming empty nesters or not, regardless of all of that, the one thing that I think is the most important is staying true to the most important relationship, and that's the one with yourself. Because the only person who's going to show up for you is you at the end of the day, right? And the way we show up in our relationships reflects how we show up for ourselves. So if we are establishing boundaries around our health, around our time, protecting our peace, protecting our energy, letting go of relationships that no longer serve us, it's making room for more meaningful ones. It's presenting ourselves, and aura is the word I can think of, but having this aura about ourselves of confidence and respect and joy, you attract what you are. So staying true to yourself, doing the work, going to therapy, meditating. I still have dreams when my kids have flown the coop of doing like a 3-day wellness retreat somewhere, maybe even a silent retreat where nobody gets to talk. I don't even know what that would feel like. I don't know if I could do that. But anyway, recognizing how important self-care, self-love, self-discovery is in this phase of life is going to help you stay true to your most important relationship. I have done a lot of time journaling, meditating, making voice notes to myself of who I am and who I want to be in the next 5, 10, 20, hopefully 40 years. And relationships are a crucial part of life. But I feel like if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, how can you really show up for other people? So I wanted to end with that relationship because I want that to be, if you've completely forgotten everything I've talked about, I would love for you to leave this episode understanding that you are exactly who you are supposed to be and that you are worthy of love and respect. And by loving and respecting yourself, others will follow. And if they're not loving you and respecting you, then some self reflection on whether or not that relationship has reached its end is an important one to have. So I hope that we can end this episode on a high note. I feel like it's like kind of doom and gloom on this podcast, but I do think there's a lot of joy and a lot of connection that we can find with others. And I think we are self-aware enough and have enough experience, especially us girls, man. I don't know about you, but some of the friendships I had in high school, I got burned and I got mistreated and I was willing to tolerate things that I shouldn't have. And same with romantic relationships. If I think about past boyfriends, like the silly ones that you have in high school and maybe even in college, the people pleasing, when I look back on those relationships, really didn't get me anywhere. It just left me feeling burnt out, exhausted, and used. And when I finally got old enough to say, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And when I finally thought to myself, is this relationship, is investing my time and my energy in this experience going to benefit myself and the other person, and really taking stock before saying yes to everything. There's so much more peace in that. And then I know that when I invest time and energy into a relationship, we'll both get something out of it. So remember, in closing, that midlife is a season of transformation in relationships, whether with parents, partners, children, or friends, are all part of that journey. I want you to share your thoughts and questions, share some stories about relationships. Tell me, send me messages on social media or leave comments at the end of this podcast. I want to hear your feelings as you get into this midlife about relationships. And I want you to prioritize yourself above all, because when you're true to yourself, you create space for authentic, fulfilling relationships all around you.